Hello, this isn't Lee, it's somebody else, because I'm wearing a mask. Oh, do you want him to take his mask off?
Well, I want to do more than that. You see, I don't just want to take his mask off. I want to take his face off. That's right. I want to take his face, nose, ears, chin off. Right off. I want to take his face off. 'Cause I'm Castor Troy. Woo! Yeah! Castor Troy! Woo! Woo! Happy Halloween, everyone. Well, almost. Hello. This is Lee, of course, back once again for another video, and I guess it's been a while. Normally I'm on top of these things, but, one thing after another just came up and just kept interfering with my review. But here now, finally, you're here, I'm there, yes, the opposite. But I'm here to do a Shimmer review, yes, and this is going to be of the live experience in Berwyn, Illinois, of the live show for Shimmer Volume 105 and 106. Yes, in the hundreds. And there's going to be a little bit of ranting mixed in, but first I'm going to do my overall thoughts of the live experience of Shimmer Women Athletes Wrestling. Not a paid sponsor of any kind, just a journalistic review. And this is a review channel first and foremost, and not, a result channel, and not a, I'm a reviewer before I'm a reporter. So, other people have already posted about the show. It'll probably be a couple of years before you get to see it. So this is my take on it here now. Yes, so I want to apologize to my army of tiny followers about some of the sound issues, sound problems I've had with some of my more recent videos. I try to keep a handle on things, but sometimes, technical problems, happen. So I'm going to try to correct those. In some cases, I'm forced to basically re-record my thoughts, and it kind of ruins the moment because, it's fresh and raw, and, I kind of have to repeat myself. Whatever. But thank you for your patience, those of you who care. So anyway, the Halloween season is almost upon us. Many things coming through the airwaves and the interwebs, which I'm told is a series of tubes, as they say. But the Mae Young Classic on WWE Network, has been happening. Of course, it was recorded long ago, but this weekend is Evolution, the all-women's pay-per-view on the network. So eventually I'll be reviewing that as well. That, of course, features one match, which is the culmination of the second Mae Young Classic, which was back from August through, this month. But now we get to Shimmer Women Athletes. Now, I've been a fan of Shimmer for many years, and I'm sure many WWE fans are finally seeing, oh, Shimmer actually is a thing. Shimmer's been around. Shimmer has women wrestling. Now, no doubt with some of this brand loyalty, if they even watch it at all, they'll say, well, these, women were nothing until they came to WWE. If that's what they say, I don't buy it for a second, because if you watch their matches in regular WWE television, compared to the Mae Young Classic, compared to NXT, and then compared to their actual matches in the independent circuit, as they call it, which includes Shimmer. Shimmer is an independent wrestling federation based in Berwyn, Illinois, USA, of your planet Earth. They'll see that actually the quality's been there all along. I think there's a misconception that, a wrestler hasn't made it until they've come to WWE. Maybe in terms of money, perhaps, and, audience, a worldwide audience. I'm not sure what the numbers are for Japan, but certainly for women wrestlers, I mean, it's not about their skill. Their skill's been built up and, shown in other matches. These aren't rookies. But anyway, so to the show proper. I saw this, a weekend ago. I only attended the Saturday show, as I often do. It just works out for my schedule the best way. I definitely made the journey. If there's any doubt, I brought some souvenirs. So I have here my ticket stub for the show, the live show, if you can see that there. Of course, I got general admission, but as I'll explain later, I started off in the general admission, kind of the stage area, and I actually got to move ahead because some people just left. They left their more expensive seats completely behind. So for the second volume, the second half of the evening, I got to get a little bit better view. And actually the experience was pretty good. It looked like, a pretty full turnout, except for, those people that left, a few rows of people left. Midway through the show, there weren't really any smarks, but there were some other people that were a little annoying. I'll get to that a little later. So, more fun stuff. There was a couple of flyers were laying around. I think this was in my dashboard. Some other local wrestling promotions. So, if you're in the area and you want to catch that, this isn't a paid advertisement, but there's other independent wrestling going on. This is typical. It happens all the time. This other group, I've never heard of them, but some more stuff going on. AAW isn't the only other promotion that records at the Berwyn Eagles Club there. So that's that stuff. And then also, just to prove I was really there, I have an autographed copy of Holidead. Yes, she debuted in Shimmer that weekend. It's like, Holidead, who's that? Is that like Hollywicked? But no, and she actually wore a different face paint than this. She wore kind of a purple and red, almost like a TNA Jeff Hardy, in his heyday, his final run before he left and went back to WWE, and before he became Brother Nero and all that. She did fine. She did great. But anyway, the show, as usual, it was about 7.5 hours of wrestling. The show was supposed to start at 1:40 p.m. on Saturday. And it was a little chilly, a little cold. There was a little bit of flakes of snow, more like sleet, I suppose. But it stopped, and the temperature was maybe in the 30s. So I brought all kinds of warm gear, but it wasn't so bad. And of course, many people traveled. I recognized many familiar faces from the old crowd. But there were no Joshi this time, which was unfortunate, and I kind of knew ahead of time, but too bad. And that was kind of a treat, to have those Japanese performers wrestling, and the quality they bring. But because of that, there was a sizable number of the usual fans who didn't show up because of that. No one threw streamers. There's no Joshi fan section. No Japanese flags in the crowd visible. But, some of the old regulars were there. Some of the people that usually come to every single show were there. But the problem with Shimmer is this. It's 99.99% of Shimmer is DVDs. Digital versatile discs. And they're way behind on the digital versatile discs. As people complained about at the show. These people were a little drunk, I'm afraid, but the content of what they were saying, even though it was inappropriate in the situation, was correct. It's been about 2 years since the last, the show that was last released on digital versatile disc was aired 2 years ago, approximately, by this time. And yes, it's true that we have had a couple of pay-per-views released since then. I believe it was, so Volume 81 was the last digital versatile disc released from Shimmer. And I'm sure Dave Prazak is doing his best, but still, it is what it is. And then they had Volume 91 and Volume 100, which are still available video on demand. I believe it's WWN Live. And they have the Stream Shimmer service out there, but it only goes up from Volume 1 to 64. It seems like a pretty good deal, but if you already have the discs, you already have all the content. But, many of those discs are out of print, so fair enough. But really, if you look at the continuity of it, they're only about 6 months out of date because from volume 100 approximately to 105, you didn't miss that much. But if you're trying to follow what's on the digital versatile discs, you're 2 years behind. And who knows when these shows will come out. So only the people that were there, the 250 fans in attendance, and the staff and, wrestlers themselves, the only ones that get to see it. At this show, there were no, at the Berwyn Eagles Club, there was no video packages, no screens showing anything. The only screen that I saw was a television set that you could kind of see through the crack of the black curtain where the wrestlers come out, and it was watching American football. I guess there was a game on, people didn't want to miss it. But, so too bad no story development. And maybe when the discs come out, they'll add some, behind the scenes, backstage interviews or whatever. That'd be fine. Maybe a recap from the previous volume. But Shimmer fans who've been watching WWE Network with the Mae Young Classic have seen clips, teasers of different wrestlers who have appeared in the 6-month to 2-year period that is not yet available on disc or in the 2 streaming iPay-per-views. So kind of a tease is like, what's been happening? I think the only thing I looked up was like, well, who's the champ right now? So Nicole Savoy, champion. Tag team champions Leva Bates and Delilah Doom. Totally tubular tag team, kind of a comedy team. We knew that. And then the Heart of Shimmer champion was Dust. I was like, really? I kind of had to think about it. Well, wasn't it Shazza McKenzie? So she must have lost to Dust, formerly known as Angel Dust. So I knew that going in. But this time I brought a friend along. I've long wanted to introduce someone to Shimmer who hadn't seen it before. And so brought him along to see. And he seemed to enjoy it. He also was annoyed by certain fans' their behavior. And he, of course, is a wrestling fan, compared it to things he'd seen before. And, I said, well, you should see All In. That's this big indie thing that's coming out. Supposedly they're doing it again. They did it once. I didn't see it. I'd be perfectly fine with watching something like that. I like Shimmer because it's such an interesting, unique product. But I don't have a problem with independent wrestling in general. Typically, I wouldn't really want to see WWE. I mean, a house show would be fine. But I did have an opportunity. I could have seen a house show, but for SmackDown, I think it was, and it was just the roster didn't look that interesting. For the price that you paid, it just didn't seem that good. I mean, think about this. So I paid $30 for a ticket. It used to be way cheaper to see Shimmer, but $30 for 7.5 hours of wrestling. I was going to rent a hotel room and see Sunday, but we decided, we're just going to see Saturday. So saved $100 there. I didn't have to rent, the Roadway Inn in Lyons, Leon. Not a paid shill, but that's okay. $100, it's a little pricey for a 2-star hotel like that, even though it is the place of choice for Shimmer fans. Again, not a paid sponsor. And of course, there's this wonderful Mexican restaurant across the street from Shimmer with nice glass windows, and you can see the other people waiting in line, playing Cards Against Humanity or whatever it is they do. But good food, cheap for the price. You can get a good meal for $5 or $10 easily. And there was no announcement of any after party, so no one, we didn't go to Paisans or Michael Anthony's, which was too bad. There was no fan fest. So not a lot of fanfare. I didn't see Dave Prazak. If he was there, he must have stayed in the back. He wasn't there doing commentary. And a lot of the stars were not there. But there were some that were definitely there. And some of the ones I'd seen before had definitely improved. And of course there were people that, you may have recognized from the Mae Young Classics, where NXT were there and did fine. So I'd say an overall good show. Back to the kind of chronology of events, if you will. It was supposed to start at 1:40. Usually they have a dark match. They call it Sparkle. This time they called it Rise. I guess Rise, the Phoenix of Rise champion. This whole thing had happened before. And they've been doing this for a little while. On Friday, before they do the Shimmer tapings, live tapings, on Friday they will have like maybe a half-day show I don't know if it's like 3 hours or 2.5 hours, something like that. And they'll have, you know, basically their tryouts, and they'll bring some of the veterans in to do something. So people were like, "Oh, you should have seen Rise. Rise was so good. Mercedes Martinez had this, you know, Iron Man, Iron Woman match with, you know, whoever was the champion. It was so good." And then they usually talk about how, oh, when it goes to Blu-ray, like so quickly and comes out. And I just thought, well, that's great that they're doing that for, you know, their developmental group. And I suppose these people will be fast-tracked into WWE at some point, but what about the regular fans who wait for the digital versatile disc of the show, especially if they didn't get to see it live and they wanted to see it, or they missed something and they wanted to see it? They have to wait 1 to 2 years to see it. Too bad. And I know that they're an independent promotion, they don't have the big bucks, but what's the hold up? I mean, I know they like to do quality, but other promotions are able to get their stuff out a little quicker, so what's hampering them? They've never said anything like, well, we worked out a deal, so we have to wait before we release it. And when they did stream Shimmer, not too long ago, they actually announced on the page, the Stream Shimmer website, that, oh no, just because we're streaming stuff doesn't mean that we're going to stop doing individual matches on Quick Wrestle. It doesn't mean we're going to stop doing pay-per-views live on WWN Network. It doesn't mean we're going to stop releasing digital versatile discs. Well, they did ask people, do you want Blu-ray or digital versatile disc? Well, I mean, the quality is not so great that it requires Blu-ray. I mean, are they actually recording this with, you know, 2K cameras or something? Who knows? But I think the quality's fine. The last discs they've released, you know, volume 80, 81, they look great on a regular television, and, you know, whatever. Sound is fine, the ability to select commentary on and off, I like it. So, let me talk about the show. You're probably wondering, well, what was the show likely? Let me tell you more about it. So, you walk in, and the show was maybe like 20-30 minutes late from the time they said it would start. Now, they said it would get over no later than 9 o'clock, but it was more like 9:15, 9:20 before they finally cleared out of there on Saturday at the end of Volume 106. And they did make references to Volume 104 a few times, which was good because I wasn't there. I didn't see it live. The last show I saw was, Volume 99. And of course, I saw the iPay-per-view Volume 100, but after that, I haven't seen it. And how could I unless I bought a ticket and saw? Even when I go to see Shimmer live, I rarely see the entire program. That's quite a full evening. 14 hours of wrestling or so. Which, it's great, but it's exhausting. As any reporter who's done that knows. So we got in, and they had a couple of dark matches to start off with. I noticed that in the Berwyn Eagle Club, you go in and you sit down, and they're not folding chairs. They're kind of those little padded, fixed chairs. And they've got the first 4 rows that you can buy. The more expensive tickets, I think it's like 80, 60, 40, maybe 70 in there. And then the general admission's $30. And so then there's people in the back. And there's a stage in front where the hard cameras are, recording the action. And then they've got 2 cameramen with their little handhelds, on the sides. And then, of course, they've got, various people taking pictures. Most of them are reporters, I imagine. They weren't as conspicuous this time, except for the cameraman, of course, and they didn't get in my way. I sat in the middle, right when you come down the stairs, past one of the ticket table, and, of course, there's the merchandise tables behind you, and then you sit, and I sat kind of in the middle, trying to get the best view I could. Unfortunately, there were some people behind me that were a little annoying, and I'll get into that later. They dimmed the lights, so it was kind of more of a theatrical kind of feel to it. Normally there's all these chandeliers, these fake candelabras up in the ceiling, the rafters. These were all shut off, and instead they had these large, kind of stereotypical, like those football lights, I call them that. They're these big, box lights, and a big tall pole in each of the 4 corners of the barricades, the metal barricades that go around the ring itself. So these big barricades, and it was a little bit, scary because, and I don't know what they did Sunday, but on Saturday, a lot of times people would go outside the ring, these wrestlers would go outside the ring, and then they'd throw each other into the barricades, and people would slam into the barricade, and you see the big light kind of shake like this, and it's like, oh, please don't fall. If that falls, that's going to hurt someone. A wrestler, fan, maybe both. Those things look big and heavy. And, the lights would explode. You could just imagine a disaster. So, thankfully, none of that happened. I didn't hear about anyone getting hurt, so that's good. But anyway, so you started off with these Rise dark matches. And to be honest, they weren't that good. I was a little surprised because, actually, I had overheard the conversation of two of those wrestlers at the Mexican restaurant. They were ahead of us. And it's like you think, oh, they're just ordinary fans, with their brightly colored hair and, physiques and everything. Just ordinary people, but, they're a little rough around the edges in terms of their matches. The characters were good, and that's something that I've consistently noticed about Shimmer is their rookies have great looks, but the performance, it takes some work. I mean, if they're just starting out, because the way Shimmer started out is they didn't start out with rookies. They started out with people who were already good independent women wrestlers, and then they brought in talent from Japan and the UK and other places, Australia. They were already good, and it was more like a showcase for good women's wrestling. And then at some point in time, it seems like they decided to try to fast-track rookie women in, get them up to speed, and then get them into WWE as quickly as possible. That's just my impression, because you'd see these people and they'd be there for a couple of volumes, and then all of a sudden, they're on NXT, they're in the Mae Young Classic, they're on WWE television. Not always, the best, but there they are. And I guess then Shine came along, and I don't watch Shine, but it's an all pay-per-view thing connected with Shimmer, a lot of the same stars. It seemed like a lot of people kind of like fast-tracked from one to the other and then onto mainstream televised wrestling. And that's okay. But as an indie fan, it's like I like to see these wrestlers, and I'm glad many of the veterans do come back. So, again, back to the actual match. So, I'm going to get the names here thanks to other people's reporting, because I didn't write it down. I didn't have a little pad. I like to watch the wrestling match. I don't want to see it through my viewfinder on my camera, and I don't want to be in my phone, as some people were. And some people were taking pictures the entire time, and it was kind of like, a little annoying, big bright screen, but whatever. So it's Queen Aminata. She was this tall, slender, wavy hair, kind of dressed like an African warrior, very tall, and she was against Rocky Radley, and she, I believe, was brunette. I can't remember if her outfit was more black. I mean, black is kind of the common color, but the Queen, she was the face. It was kind of a sloppy match, honestly. I mean, they did a few moves. It looked like they were just, they were better than the average person, but they just had a lot to do, and it wasn't that memorable, honestly. Just a singles match. And then the next dark match, again presented by Rise, part of this pre-show. There were no male wrestlers at all. It was Robin Reed against Alex Garcia. And honestly, I don't remember much about this one either, except that I thought it was sloppy. That was my note. I mean, again, it wasn't terrible, but these two matches were kind of like, well, this is the sort of thing. This was the, I hate to say it, they call it the piss break. This is the bathroom break filler match that would have been on, WWE or TNA television at a certain point in time. And of course, TNA has the knockouts. They've been doing that for a while, but at a certain point in time, their women's matches were pretty horrible as well. So I wasn't too impressed by this. This was just kind of like the icebreaker. The crowd wasn't too into it either. That's fine. Now we get into the actual beginning of the volume, and they played, the Veruca Salt, music, and da-da-da, shimmer, shimmer, da-da, and then they started, and it was Rachel Evers. Now, is it Rachel Evers or Rachel Ellering? Who knows? On the autographed copy I have, it's Rachel Ellering. I believe she's known as that in WWE, but her gear says Rachel Evers, and I think they announced her as Rachel Evers, so whatever. But there she is, she has, she's buff, She smiles a lot. Got a tan. She very, over with the crowd. And she was against Karen Q. And Karen Q I had never seen before until the Mae Young Classic 2018. The preliminaries, she was from Chinatown. And she went against the Chinese wrestler and she was defeated. But here she was a face rather than a heel. And of course that confirms what I've always suspected, which is that other wrestling promotions where these wrestlers appear, even if they use the same name and the same outfit and the same gimmick and everything, isn't necessarily canon. They don't necessarily come in as the same heel or face that they were before. And there's probably some plants in the audience. You hear the person's music, or as soon as they come out, suddenly they go, boo! Boo! It's like, how do they know? My philosophy, I know it's fake and everything. Ooh, it's performance. But to me, as an audience member, I'm not going to boo someone unless they give me a reason. If their character's already established as a heel, I'm going to assume they're still a heel. But of course, it's hard to say because it's been 6 months since the last volume, so who knows whether they were good or bad. But Karen Q, not necessarily bad here. I think she pulled out a couple of maybe questionable tactics later on. But Rachel Evers, always good, and she won. I think the two of them were fine. Both very athletic. Karen Q, very large muscles. The two of them, looked like a good match. If you see them together, you go, yes, of course. They could fight one another. Rachel Evers, usually she goes against like smaller opponents. She kind of throws them around, kind of shows off her, ability to lift them and stuff. But I think it was a good match. I didn't put much else in terms of my notes. And now the second match, and I never warned you about spoilers, did I? Well, obviously the spoilers. So now you know. This was a tag team match against the you had the Blue Nation, whom I love, and they never wear blue that I've ever seen. Charlie Evans, who I had mentioned before as someone who really plays up. Very few wrestlers are dressed out. I noticed there were a lot of hecklers, a lot of drunken hecklers, and Charlie Evans would, insult them and talk back to them and act angry when they, said insults. Which, she's good, and very few wrestlers this time, they just ignored it. They focused right on the camera. I don't know if that's the greatest thing. It's like, yes, the fans are trying to draw attention to themselves, and unfortunately some of them, the smarks, really, they want to go there and tell stupid jokes and have everyone focus on them, and they want to be the center of attention. So maybe they told them, hey, just ignore the crowd and just play to the camera and just tune everything else out. But I like it better when the wrestlers, especially it's like if it's a tag team and you're not the one in, the legal, on the sides and someone's talking, you're like, hey, you shut up, you want to come out here, that's kind of fun. So I appreciate that. Charlie Evans, she's like an overgrown child, a bratty child, that's kind of a character. And then, of course, Jet Troy, who is very slender in comparison to Charlie Evans. Charlie Evans more bulky. And the two of them are bad, the heels, heel team. And they seem to be on a trajectory towards, they're going to go for the championship. And I fully approve. I hope they win. We haven't had a heel tag team championship team in a while. So I'd be all for that. And, they're not Americans. So the fact that they would have to travel a lot, might be a problem. But even if they're the champs for, a couple of volumes, I'd still be okay with that. So good for them. I hope they continue on. But anyway, the two of them, they were doing like a promo in the ring at some point. They had the microphone. Jessica Troy's talking. She's talking kind of softly. And the fans were like, blah, 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 you suck, blah, blah. They were heckling. And at a certain point, Charlie Evans like snapped at him. Was like, hey, you shut up, you listen. I don't remember exactly what she said, but it was like, this is important. We're sick of people not taking us seriously, and we're going to, do all this stuff. And I was like, that's the spirit. That's what I like to see. So even though they didn't do these video packages, the live interaction with the crowd, the give and take between audience, fans, and, wrestlers, That's great. That's what I like about the live experience. And I didn't get a whole lot of that this time. A lot of the people just didn't seem to. I don't even know why they were there. So it's kind of too bad. And I'll say more about that later. So the Blue Nation was up against the Team Sea Stars, SEA, like the sea. Stars, like they're seeing stars, are dizzy. That was cute. It was Ashley Vox and Delmy Exo. And originally I thought Delmy Exo wore face paint because I thought I saw a picture. I think she was with Holiday, but she looked similar, kind of this Kiss Army, Jeff Hardy type makeup. But no, she just was normal. And let's see, their opponents. I want to say Blue Nation was wearing purple and green. I think for this and the other matches, sparkly, shiny, shimmery outfits. And their opponents kind of had like a denim leather kind of combination. I actually had a hard time telling them apart. I mean, that's kind of a thing with tag teams, especially female tag teams. They both, have their hair the same way, their outfits almost exactly the same way. A lot of wrestlers do, put their name on their tights or their top or their boots. It helps, especially for their commentators who can't keep it straight who's who. But especially for fans, who've never seen them wrestle before. And all they've got is, the announcer mentioned their name at the start, and that's it. That's the only time you know anything. So who's who? So I was rooting for the bad guys, what can I say? And they did win. The Blue Nation won. So good for them. Charlie Evans has a little bit of white in her hair, kind of like Rogue from the first X-Men movie. That's fine. A lot of black or very dark lipstick I noticed this time. There seem to be trends. It's like everyone's in the back room. They're like, let's all do Kool-Aid hair together. Let's all, do this part of our look. So there's a lot of women with black or very dark lipstick. And I suppose it made Blue Nation look a little more evil. Because, they kind of just look like fun-loving people if they weren't, doing dastardly things and cheating and cutting corners. And I did put down who was the referee every time, but Andy Long was the only referee I really recognized. Actually, there was one. I think he refereed maybe in Volume 100, or maybe earlier than that, back in 98. Because I did recognize one other referee, but Andy Long got so much flack from people. Fans were always yelling at him and insulting him. And it's just because there were two matches where he basically just stood there while the heels beat the faces with weapons. I believe those were the Japanese matches, where you had Yumi Oka and people like that, just laying waste to the other people, and he just kind of stood there helplessly. And it's it's not always you. So I blame that more on the booking than on the character of Andy Long, the referee, being incompetent or whatever. They've never really explained it that I've seen. It would be kind of neat if they tried to the storyline for that. Why? Try to redeem him, because the referees are such an integral part of wrestling. And yes, you've had corrupt referees and bad referees, especially in Japanese women wrestling. It's a kind of a trope. But poor Andy Long, it's even when he doesn't do anything wrong, people still berate him. And he just I'd like to get his autograph sometime. It's I didn't do it. I was just following orders. Leave me alone. So, anyway. So you had that match, which was perfectly fine. I'm sure I'll enjoy it later when it finally comes out again. Then you had a singles match with Britt Baker against Sierra. Now, Britt Baker I'd seen before, from the Fire and Ice tag team. She's kind of tall, slender, has TV good looks, I would say. And she wore kind of a black and red. A lot of people wore black and red. And this is where there was a smirk in the audience. And I'm sure he's hoping he'll be on the digital versatile disc. And I'm sure, I don't know how you could edit him out. He was screaming. He was standing there and screaming, "It's Britt Baker! It's Britt Baker!" And he sounded like Wolfman Jack. Or at least he was trying to. And he just was like, "It's Britt Baker! It's Britt Baker!" Well, I'm sure she appreciated that. It was kind of weird. And I think that's where the audience, you can't force an audience to be cast members and just do fake stuff. pipe in, fake applause. But it's like there was just like silence, and then one person yelling. It'd be cooler if everyone was kind of making noise and yelling. There was usually just a couple people talking too loudly about something unrelated. Whatever. So, whatever. That detracted a little bit from my experience, but, this guy shut up right after the introductions were over, so that's fine. Good for him. I don't know if he stuck around, but he got to see Britt Baker, and he seemed excited. So, whatever. So then we had Sierra. I hadn't seen Sierra before. She just looked like, just kind of like a normal, nice person, not threatening at all. She wears black and white, and she kind of cheats, and she's kind of bad. She's kind of snarky. Not an over-the-top character, but kind of generic, I guess. But I sort of felt the same way about Britt Baker. I thought, well, she's attractive, she's athletic, but what has she done to really stand out as a singles wrestler? So, no offense to either one of them, but this match wasn't that memorable. So, maybe we'll see more from these wrestlers. I think Sierra, I'm trying to think. Yeah, there was nothing really wrong with her performance. It just didn't stand out that much. In traditional professional wrestling, they'll say vanilla midgets, when there's any small wrestler, and then you'll get a Daniel Bryan who's like really popular, but they'll just say, everybody looks the same and they don't really do much. But the thing is with Shimmer, it's all women, so it's not like you being a woman wrestler stands out, or you being pretty or tall or, athletic stands out, because they're all pretty much that way. So it has to be about character. It has to be about style. So, and wrestlers have to find their way. And it also is, who they're matched up with. Will it draw money? So, it was alright. But not my favorite. Next match was another singles match. And here, of course, we had the lovable Veda Scott with her long red hair and her horn-rimmed glasses, or nerdy glasses, whatever you want to call them. And she came out wearing this stuffed animal head, this giant, costume, cat or squirrel, or I'm not sure what animal, probably a cat, kind of a cartoon anime type face. And she wore it, and it was just very goofy, and people were laughing and chuckling. And because she's been like a lovable goof, she's been like kind of an evil, kind of nasty heel. She's been kind of someone who kind of talks her way out of things. She's kind of a coward. She's sneaky. Kind of like a comedy villain, if that makes sense. You do have these comedy villains where it's like they do bad things, they break the rules, they're sometimes nasty, but usually they're just kind of like sneaky, kind of like cowardly, and you kind of chuckle along with them, even though you kind of want to see them get beat down. But you're not too afraid of them. You're just like, he's going to get his comeuppance, she's going to get her comeuppance, that type of thing. So Veda Scott, good for her, and she's improved a lot since her early beginnings with Shimmer, many years ago now. It's like all these rookies are now veterans. It's hard to believe this much time has gone by since I became a fan, but there you go. And she was against Delilah Doom. Doom! Delilah Doom. Doom! People keep chanting, Doom, Doom, Doom! And I was so used to Delilah Doom wearing her Richard Simmons, sweating to the oldies, Jane Fonda, aerobics outfit, the tights and the leotard and the headband and the leg warmers and all that sort of thing. So she was wearing like a brand new outfit that says Doom on it and was white, and she looked more like an American Gladiator, a smaller American Gladiator, but she's still got a big smiley face and a big curly hair and everything. But Veda Scott, I don't know. I just assumed that, Delilah Doom's going to win, but I was wrong. Veda Scott won, and that's fine. They're both kind of comedic characters. Delilah Doom's a lovable goof that's actually really good, and Veda Scott's a goofy villain. So, there you go. So, that was kind of enjoyable. Good characters, of course. Next, we have another singles match. And this singles match was Samantha Heights, Height, because she's a lost girl, and of course she wasn't dressed like Peter Pan or one of the Lost Boys this time. She had kind of like a 80s rocker, leopard print, pink, silvery, she had a couple different outfits, but it was like she was coming out dancing this rock music, and she was a different character than before. Kind of as before, she was kind of like, oh, I'm this kind of whimsical like child that kind of wandered into a fight. So she's a little more confident, a little more charismatic, and the fans were definitely on her side. She was against Kiera Hogan. Okay, now Kiera Hogan, she wore red and yellow, and she's African American. And I think before, the last thing I remember was her having a match where she was just kind of like, complaining that she broke a nail, and she kind of had this, I don't know, jokes about her backside, and it was just she looked good, but she didn't do much. Was kind of my thought. I think she was arguing with Marty Bell over who was going to beat up the poor face. But Kiera Hogan, I think, was much better this time. I think she definitely appears to be more seasoned. But this match was kind of ruined for me. I'm going to say why. So, there was this guy behind me, and I couldn't tell if he was alone or if there was two other people with him, but there were certainly people egging him on. And I think he was intoxicated because he would say, like, jokes, but they would be like one or two words, or just like a short phrase, and he would laugh hysterically. He would be snickering and giggling. If you've ever seen this video of Anderson Cooper just giggling and he can't stop, it was like that. And so he'd be like, Kiera Hogan, you're Hulk Hogan. Ha 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 ha. And he'd giggle for like 15 minutes. And he's like, hey, hi, Hulk Hogan, where's Kevin Nash? He just kept going on, and I was just like, it's so cringy. And no one was saying anything to like, hey, buddy, can you be quiet? I'm trying to watch this match here. You're not that funny. And when this sort of thing happens, because he wasn't really a smart, he was just kind of a drunken goofball, is that, yes, he paid a ticket, but he's ruining it for everyone else, because now they're distracted by him. And I feel bad, because if I turn around and tell him to shut up, which would be the normal thing, then I feel bad, because it's like, oh, now I'm creating negativity, and people around me are going to be influenced by that, and they're going to be distracted by me complaining. So, it's kind of a no-win situation. And if you watch the digital virtual disc, it's like, well, what do? Just turn the commentary way up to drown him out? Because you can't drown him out. Because he's just talking about, like, I wanted to help him. Like, if you're going to make a joke, say, she Hulk Hogan. There you go. Just because she has the word Hogan in her name, and she's wearing yellow and red, she wasn't, like, wrestling like Hulk Hogan. I don't know, it was just really silly. So I kind of felt bad for the wrestlers, but, they seemed to be wrestling competently, when I wasn't being totally distracted by this guy and his giggling. It was decent. So, this is one of those matches I'll just have to go back and watch again on the home format, because it was kind of ruined for me. There was only one other match that was ruined like this, because really you had the drunk guy and his two friends, or his two accomplices, in the back. I don't know if they thought no one could hear them, but then there was a woman who was intoxicated, and she was just, like, complaining, and, I kind of recapped it with my friend later, and I guess the thing was, it's like, her boyfriend, I guess, he was wearing a wrestling mask, so I've already outed him, whoever he is. He seemed like a fan, but then he brought this woman with him, a girlfriend, a friend, a wife, I don't know who, their relationship, but, she was bored at a certain point, she wanted to go home. And he was like, no, stay, enjoy. And so she started heckling and making just complaints, loud complaints. And he didn't really try to, like, calm her down or anything. And if anyone's been in a relationship, they know that sometimes, it's tough to calm your significant other down when they're kind of making a fool of themselves. But, it's tough to do, but really it's in their best interest. So I kind of felt bad for them now. But at the time I was very annoyed and just thought, But they were put in their place, or at least that drunk woman was, and it was kind of funny later on. But I'll get into that later. So anyway, there was that match. Next, you had another single. And this was Ginny, the fashionista, they say. And she's very slender. And she has this kind of sour expression on her face, and she wears black. I first saw her in the Mae Young Classic 2018. She was a heel then, she's a heel now. And she was kind of a potty mouth, kind of naughty language. She used a lot of profanity, both to the crowd and to the wrestler she was wrestling with. Now, in the past, they've always said, and they've always advertised Shimmer as a all ages show. And people have said, oh, it's a family show, whatever. And there were only, I only noticed two children, two people that were, younger in the audience, and they hardly participated at all. But the drunk person was like, no, this is mature content, it's an adult show. I can swear if I want, 'cause she was swearing, way more. But a lot of F-bombs, and so I'm not sure what they're going to do. In the past, it was like very clean. I mean, it's wrestling, obviously, it's violent, but it was no profanity of any kind, no risque, stuff. Except once in a while, something would slip out. Usually it was from wrestlers that had just come in from other places and they weren't regulars. I think Lufisto made a kind of off-color joke one time when she was a heel. Well, she still is. But Ginny, kind of foul-mouthed, and no one ever stopped her. I mean, I think the once exception to this was always Sweet Soraya. She would, throw out a couple of profane things, flip someone the bird, as they say, and people go, woo, and it had such more impact because up to now everything was very calm, very sedate, very, all ages, but whatever. So Jenny, little hard-edged, whatever. And I don't know, I mean, I guess she makes up for the fact that she doesn't look like someone that's going to really do any damage or beat anyone up, but she's mean and nasty. And she was against Shotzi Blackheart. Now, of course, Shotzi Blackheart, everyone remembers her with her big, helmet with the horns and the biker, jacket and the bright green hair, and she's da-da-da-da and doing all this, dancing, and she's calmed down a little bit since her Rise debut. She's no longer the Rise champion, she's just a regular member. I like her as a character, and certainly she definitely has energy and, wrestling ability. And Ginny, of course, too. So the two of them, again, I think did surprisingly well. It wasn't a showstopper, but it's one of these things where you can't judge a book by its cover. You see these wrestlers and you go, this isn't going to be anything. But it was fine. They did fine. So there you go. And now, moving on.